Welcome to Let's Talk About Health, an informational podcast that gives you insights on health and fitness from experts themselves that you can apply directly to your own personal health and fitness stories. Come join me today to hear all about what they have to say on health and fitness. Hello,
Hello,
how are you?
very good. Nice to connect. This is exciting. As I was telling you earlier, my first time on Instagram Live, so it's nice to see this in action.
Yeah, it's exciting and it was so easy. One of
Yeah,
the easiest ones.
yeah. I feel like compared to Zoom and all the other sort of meetup applications, things go wrong. But of course, Meta has things pretty well
Yes.
figured out at this point.
I think you're giving yourself less credit. I think you're a
All
pro.
right. Well, I'll take it. Thank you. You taught me, so that was the key. You gave me great
Yeah,
instructions.
I'm a good teacher. But yeah, thank you for joining me today for Let's Talk About Health by Bhavna. And today we'll be talking a little bit more about health and your opinion and what you think about health and fitness as a whole. We'll be talking about your journey a little bit, about your experience and how we got to this stage where we're able to talk about it and share that knowledge and experience with everyone out there. So it's going to be amazing. So let's dive in.
Great. I'm ready.
Awesome. Let me start by asking you, what do you think about health and fitness?
Great. I love that that's a wide open question. There could be a lot of directions to go in. I'll contextualize it a little bit for people that are watching that might not know me. That I'm a doctor of chiropractic, and I am the son of a chiropractor. My sister is a chiropractor. My mom's a massage therapist. So I've kind of grown up around people that are passionate about health, and been fortunate to have friends that are in the industry in different ways too. So I grew up really liking exercise and nutrition, and those are sort of foundations people often think of with health. But of course, especially as we age, we get more career experience. In my case, practicing in a pain management practice, I realized pretty quickly, the importance of the mind and the body and the mental health aspect as well. That's all tied in. So it's not just about staying active. It's also about having supportive relationships and making sure that you're managing your stress well, because if you don't manage your mental stress, that will have symptoms that manifest physically
Mhm.
and physiologically. So if I talk to someone about what it means to be healthy, I think it's being aware first that your health is multiple pillars that you have to build, and you have to make space for filling those cups. I think, as your last guest had said that I was watching recently, filling those cups or buckets periodically.
Yes, that was so beautifully said
Yeah,
yesterday. Yeah,
yeah, I like that.
I really like that because I always get that definition about the different aspects to what health means,
Hmm.
and it's so weird because when you imagine it, it's actually like a bucket, like you're
Hmm.
filling different aspects, and every aspect is equally important.
Hmm.
But I did not know that there are so many doctors in your family growing up. How was it growing up with so many chiropractors around
Yeah.
and massage therapists? I mean, it could be very intimidating.
Uh, Not at all, actually. It was my father is very. I think he has a very balanced view in that he doesn't have any controversial views. He fits easily into discussions with MDs or PTs in terms of just being evidence based. So
Right.
I felt like it in my undergrad was biology. So I felt like the things I had heard growing up were supported by the stuff I was learning in school, and the basic physiology classes and nutrition. So it wasn't any culture shock in terms of coming from like a bubble of the chiropractic world. I very much felt like the stuff that I was taught growing up was pretty common in terms of like what academics was saying about nutrition and health as well.
Right.
So it was a little bit of a in-home tutor, I guess, with my father being a doctor. I could ask him questions for some of my college things as well. So I think I had a little bit easier. Certainly when I got to chiropractic school, I had it easier by having mentors in the
Yeah,
family. That's for sure.
I love that. Where's your father? we should be doing like a family
Oh
session.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm 2 hours south of him, an hour from my sister, so none of us actually work together, but he wishes that I was working in his practice, and I'm sure he would be happy to join if I was in the same clinic with him. But yeah, not today, but maybe next time we'll bring him in as
That
well.
is every parent's dream.
Yep.
Let me tell you. Even if they're not in the same field, they still want you to join in their practice.
Yeah, exactly. My dad never, pressured me at all about
Yeah.
being into chiropractic. He was, I just liked nutrition and exercise. I was young. I liked working out. Uh, but once I did become a chiropractor, he definitely wanted me to come practice with him. But he was understanding when I decided, to go my own path. But we have a good relationship, so I'll go cover his practice every once in a while, and he's always like, "Oh, my patients want you to come move up here," but it hasn't happened yet. I don't think it's going to either.
I love that. My parents would be too dramatic. If you back, I may die.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Are
But
your
yeah,
parents in completely different fields, I assume? Yours are
yes,
not physical therapists.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I'm the my auntie is in medicine, but other than that, I'm the only one in medicine, and I really wanted to be like a surgeon, but in India it's very different. Just education and the bachelor's is very costly,
Mhm.
and it's all dependent on different. The admission process is very different.
Yeah.
The more donations that you give to the college or university,
Mhm.
the better admission and placements you get. So, which my dad was very okay doing. He was like, "This is your dream, so I'm okay investing in you."
Mhm.
But I did not want that, and I found physical therapy. I was put into physical therapy. I got great grades, and that was a program that matched me. And I didn't want to be a dentist, and I like that physical therapy is not just years of study and then too much burnout.
Mhm.
I love the fact that I am in fitness. I am in such a broad aspect or spectrum of health that I'm realizing now that falls in physical therapy. It's a big stream. It has so many aspects and certifications and small fields that are growing, and it's very fascinating to me how dry needling came up a few years back. We're using taping. I'm a certified taping practitioner, and we're learning about lymphatics, and it's so fascinating that just exercise can do so many wonders
Mhm.
without side
Yeah.
effects.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love seeing the changes in our industry, in particular, what you just said to made me think of like women's pelvic health has gotten so much attention online, which is amazing because so many people lived in sort of the shadows with these problems. But now with social media, it gives access for people to get on a podium and make huge differences in people's lives by offering those services, even offering them remotely. So the fact that there's so much more access for this exchange of knowledge and access to providers and specialists that might not be in your community or in your doctor's referral network, that's been like an incredible thing to witness, is people being able to share their specialties. And I refer to people I've met on Instagram through different collaborations now for people. So I love that change. It's definitely different than it was 10 years ago for sure.
Right. Same. I interviewed one of the guest speakers over here was Dr. Jill O'Brien, and we had a lovely interview. If you see, she's a physical therapist herself, and she specializes in women's health, pelvic
Mhm.
health, and prenatal, postnatal. And me practicing here in New York, I have a soft spot for orthopedics and sports.
Mhm.
More of the outpatient type of patient
Yeah.
care. But I do come across patients, and I do have one patient very recently in her third trimester with back pain, but she has bilateral sciatica and it's so severe. So I reached out to her, and she's been amazing. She helped me. She was telling me, "Did you check this test? Did you do extension exercises? You
Mhm.
should do this. You should try that." And things that I fear with pregnancy, Like, I wouldn't put someone in extension. I wouldn't give her back kicks, just because of her posture.
Hmm.
But she said, no, that will actually help. So I confidently gave it to her, and she's been saying that the pain from the feet, toes, are coming all the way back up to her spine. So we're seeing the
Yeah.
difference. Her legs are more in pain. There is the numbness and tingling has gone down. It's just the localized back pain that she has, which comes normally with pregnancy. So apart from that, she's doing good.
Yeah. Nice. I think that's better for patients ultimately too. Even just so much of the interaction and the personalities plays a role in how you accept the care and are compliant with care. That you want to, like, I'm not going to be the idyllic doctor for pediatrics or pregnancy care.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have kids. I'm not a woman. So I'd rather send that to my sister or someone else that has that expertise and passionate about it first and foremost. So I would rather have the athletes or the people that have similar interests. But I think so often we're afraid to like send any patient somewhere else. But when you have like this online community like the one you're building, you can have the confidence to say, I'm going to send patients that I know someone else would be better with,
Mm-hmm.
and I trust that they're also going to do the same thing and kind of send to my specialty.
Yeah.
But I think that's better for everybody, really.
Yeah, that's why I like collaborating with people in the allied healthcare, because I work with OTs,
Hmm.
the speech therapists. I work with
Hmm.
chiros, MTs so closely that it is very important that all of us are on the same page.
Hmm.
I want to suggest a few exercises, but I don't want to uh, not have the patient do other treatment. You know,
Yeah.
uh, I want to help fasten them as a human, as a what do you say, as an injury. I want them to heal faster, and I agree with you. I specialize in PT, orthopedics mainly, but if they want to get a proper cupping session or a dry needling session or a chiro session for that matter, I will always encourage them. I have the local connections and contacts, and I will always like pull out and tell them, hey, you should just go give my name, and
Hmm.
they'll take care of you, and it really helps. The next day they will come back with like better posture and more confident. Oh, I went there. They like tuck my spine, and now I'm all good. I'm like,
Hmm.
there you go.
Yeah. That also takes educating and interacting with other specialists so they know what you're going to have special skills at, and what they could help. I worked in a pain management practice for years with the MD that would do intraspinal injections, and so he would kind of refer back and forth, and we kind of found our own recipe of a certain presentation would work well with steroid with him, and then
Right.
rehab with me, and that sort of time window where they weren't as inflamed. So little tricks that you can co-manage with, I think, are great, but not a lot of chiros have that because historically they've kind of been outside of those networks.
Yeah.
But I think we're seeing that change too. There's a lot more collaboration and more integration, whether it's like the VA or medical homes that have chiropractors now. But the adjustment's one aspect of things. But when you take a career and a passion of continuing ed courses and other techniques, there's PTs that practice like chiropractors. There's chiropractors that practice like the historic PT.
Yeah.
But I think it's just finding people that have certain skills and specialties and passions, and then sending patients to the appropriate person in your community that they can get the best results with.
Definitely. Yeah, and accepting that that's how much help that you can give, and
Yeah,
keeping the
exactly.
patient first, and that's very important. And
Hmm.
I'm learning that there's such a beautiful community out there that's supporting one another.
Yep.
Like, we have amazing referrals, and we have grown so much. I don't know, there's one pediatric doctor that keeps, because I don't do speech so much, I feel like kids are just meant for
Yeah.
fun and for play.
Yeah, me too.
If I want a kid, I want to play with them
Yeah,
and not
yeah,
exercises or therapy.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So when there's one doctor that in the beginning of the year, January, February, we started getting so many teens and kids, and everyone is just coming one hour after the other. And I'm like, what's going on? We should just open a daycare and just get paid for it.
Yeah.
the we just had the ball outside all day long because they were mostly ankle injuries or knee pain,
Hmm.
ACL tears.
Yeah.
So we were just playing soccer, we were just doing our squats, but it was more of like play therapy, and then it was too much fun. We made it fun because kids are looking at me, they're like, "You want me to do what? What's a
Hmm.
lunge?" And I'm like, okay, let's just play.
Yeah. Yeah, it is fun teaching them, but yeah, I can also see that, especially like when kids are injured, or there's maybe more serious pathology going on, that you want to get them into like a more
Yeah.
specialized care. But it also seems to me often, that I feel like the kids, they're rubber. They bounce back. They heal pretty quickly. I often am like, oh, I think they're fine. They're still running and playing and happy. So it definitely takes the person that has the acute vision and expertise in that to really see some of the minute details, especially like with neurology and some of the feedback and uh, just things that are kind of outside of my specialty that I remember kind of learning vaguely, but I forget some of those things now because I've specialized into other things. But that's where I say, oh, I know exactly who to refer you to. This is great.
I love that. How was growing up with a sister who was also a chiro?
Nice. That was part of that education because she specialized in pediatrics and maternity. So I realized very quickly, I'm like, oh, there's a whole lot of stuff to learn, that I won't get in just chiropractic school by itself. A lot of post grad work that she did. So pretty quickly, I was like, great. That's not going to be for me. That's something I can refer to her and ask her questions when I need to. But
Yeah,
that was part of realizing what I'm good at, sticking to that, and having the people that you send to other expertise.
I like that. That's really nice and helpful to have like people that you trust in the family, moreover, that you can refer to with different specialties.
Mhm.
So that really comes handy, and you can actually send your patients confidently and be like, hey, that's my sister. Like, I really trust her. And with maternity, like you said, that's something that really scares me just thinking about being a chiro specialist for pregnant pre or postnatal women.
Mhm.
And I'm seeing that there are so many cases where they need the chiro during that time because of the changes in their posture, just so many things. So that's so good to have her in the family.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think a misconception there that I'll just kind of speak to quickly is just that a lot of people think that there's forceful adjustments to, you know, pregnant women. They have the joint laxity for the hormonal changes that are
Mhm.
occurring, and likewise with children. But in most cases, especially those people that focus on pediatric or maternity practice, they're doing a lot of soft tissue work. They're doing a lot of sort of neurological neuromuscular
Right.
stimulation and in terms of just kind of retraining the nervous system movement patterns. So I think that there's a misconception that there's a lot of adjustment going on there, but that was a surprise to me. It's very different. It's very gentle. It's very neuro based. A lot of the stuff that they're doing.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's like you said. How do you mean by neuro base? How would you elaborate or explain to someone um, who is a non-medical that chiro adjustments are neuro based?
So that is a really loaded term, and I'm probably using it. Well, I would say I'm definitely using it inappropriately, and that people could take a lot of different meanings from it. But generally, what I'm saying with that is that you're working on like peripheral nerve entrapment. So like this is not for the layperson, but let's say you have some like nerve irritation from some tight muscles or adhesions in your arm or limb, and you do some soft tissue work, massage, and some movement patterns that help to kind of break up some of those adhesions. Or maybe you're working on their balance, uh, and trying to get them to be more aware of their movement so they understand when they can engage their core. Let's say they had their child and they're just not thinking about their movement patterns. So it could be really specific, or it could be really generalized. But most of the time, it's not laying them on a table and trying to make their joints crack and pop. It's usually rubbing a certain muscle group or having them move a certain way, push against you. So it's analogous to a lot of the stuff that PTs do, but it's usually more hands-on than a PT would do. So just working with the whole nervous system, not just trying to move a joint specifically.
Right. Now I get what you're trying to say.
Yep.
Makes sense.
But there's probably 100 different specialties or courses that have the word neuro in them and chiropractic that mean very different things. So that's why maybe I shouldn't have just used that generally there.
No, I know, but it was so good to know the way you explained. That was really helpful. Like that cleared so many things when in aspect to neuro. What are the most common injuries that you come across?
Yeah, actually, just saying that out loud, it made me think when I worked for osteopaths, first kind of working with them intimately and learning some of their skills, I was very nervous. But then I realized, oh, it's just a lot of the same things with different names or like a similar even treatment technique, but they focus maybe on one soft tissue location or the relationship of, contralateral joints. Maybe they're working on the right shoulder and left hip, where I might just focus on the left hip and, the hamstring on that patient. So just seeing different patterns. I think that's the biggest difference I noticed between osteopathic care, chiropractic, and I see that same thing with PTs and OTs too, that we're ultimately doing a lot of similar things. That is, if we're engaged in the full body in terms of the nervous system, musculoskeletal. It's just searching for abnormalities in their soft tissues and nervous system that you kind of correct with either, adjustments, massage, or exercise for the most part. But to your question there, could you just repeat that one more time? I got a little distracted thinking back to some of my other clinical
No,
experiences
that's
there.
okay. I love that.
Yeah.
But most common injuries, yes.
Most common injuries, yes. Okay. So I think that's also similar for most people for general pop. The degenerative joint disease, the chronic stuff. In our culture, it's often chronic stuff. I live in maybe an older state, so in Maine, so I've seen a lot of geriatric. So there'd be the common areas where they might have lower lumbar degeneration, maybe some arthritic change in humeral joint, the knee pain. But outside of the specific degenerative arthritis, you'll see the common complaints in those transition segments. So most people have tight traps. If I remember this, especially as a new doc, patients would say, "Oh, my neck is really been hurting me." And when I go in there for my palpation, like, "Oh my God, how'd you know exactly where it was?" It's like it's the same spot at everybody. It's like the QLs in the low back where below your rib cage. It's the trap trigger points everybody has because we kind of hold our stress in those spots. So that would definitely be the most common stuff that I see. And then, tennis elbow, plantar fasciitis, pretty common stuff that most people have had at some point in their lives. But definitely as we get older, it seems to be the certain joints are the usual culprits where arthritis shows up first.
Right. Are there any misconceptions that you come across? Like you see a lot of geriatric population. So I've heard that they should not be getting chiro because of their joint laxity and degenerative changes, prone to osteoporosis. So many things out there, so many misconceptions about our field and the healthcare system. Are there any such things that you come across on a daily basis?
Yeah, and I've had different specialties depending on where I've worked. Sometimes it's been more athletes, sometimes it's been more geriatric. In that case, there's definitely people that would not be appropriate for a high velocity sort of popping and snapping adjustment.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that they're not qualified for an adjustment, because an adjustment could be essentially a mobilization where I just help move them through that joint full range over and over again until they start to get more fluid in there. They start to stretch some of the soft tissues that surround the joint. So there's a lot of different, it's a wide term what an adjustment is. It could be a snap and a pop, or it could be, some people do styles where they just do quick stretch on, the muscles and joint with like a activator tool or like a percussion tool, and that could be called an adjustment. So if I'm dealing with 90-year-old osteoporotic patient, I'm not going to twist and pop, but I am going to slowly bend and stretch. I might use some quick stretch from a really, really gentle tool to simulate some of the tendon and reflexes. But I think most people, I can't really think of a case where I wouldn't adjust in some form, because an adjustment could essentially be similar or analogous to stretching or massage for some people. It just depends on what your intention is. Are you trying to move a joint, create mobility, or are you just trying to create stability? That would be where I kind of judge whether or not I'm trying to create mobility with an adjustment or stability with exercises. It's less about whether a certain category of patient is appropriate for an adjustment. It's just kind of what adjustment type I use.
Right. It's a vast field, like you're explaining. It's not just like the crack and pop. It's not just HVTs.
Yeah.
Like we had a portion while learning physical therapy about HVTs, and our friends, they like I did not practice it so much, but I was more into manual, like you suggested, the joint
Hmm.
mobilization, the hold and relax, the PNF techniques. There's
Hmm.
so many.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's super vast. Would you, because while learning HVTs, they always told us not to do HVTs when a muscle is in spasm. Is that true?
Yeah. You could also do it, or you make an argument for doing it if in some cases, but generally, yeah, you don't want to fight or push into a tight muscle because it's just going to basically strain the muscle that's already guarding. But there are some instances where people will adjust maybe fast enough to get through that chronic tension. But it's more of a label of, are they having a true spasm? If they're having a true spasm, then no, you don't want to adjust. If there's hypertonicity there, some trigger points, and maybe some of that rigidity in the muscle, there might be a case where you adjust through it. But there aren't hard rules, but I think logically most people, if they encountered a patient that had a true spasm that wasn't letting up, they're not going to force through the muscles, because that would just be, yeah, that would be muscle strain waiting to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are different steps to approaching it. Like you said, the trigger release,
Yeah.
we can do the myofascial release first and
Mhm.
then go towards adjustment.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's most people that I know that practice would do some type of soft tissue work before, or some sort of modality, rather than having
Right.
someone walk to the door with a spasm and try to adjust it. They would do something to try to mitigate some of that spasm first, because you want to make sure you can palpate and move the joint before you add any sort of
Mhm.
speed to it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's most common.
Yeah.
But you see
Apart,
those crazy things online sometimes, like the people
yeah.
yanking their heads off or doing really dramatic things, which gets a lot of clicks or views, but is not what most people do, and is not appropriate for most people either.
We talking about the online
Yeah.
videos. Just a few days back, we were watching at our clinic. We were watching the animal Cairo videos,
Hmm. Yeah.
and because my colleague, she's fascinated with. I keep telling her, why don't you be a therapist? You should
Hmm.
become a therapist. I keep telling everyone to be a therapist. I don't know why, but I keep doing that.
Hmm.
But yeah, she's like, I don't want to be a therapist. Maybe if it's an animal, then I'll think about it. And I
Yeah.
keep telling her how there are programs for like the horses and
Hmm.
the dogs, and there are vet programs to be a PT.
Yep.
And we were just watching the videos where they're cracking the dogs and the cats, and it's so funny, but it's hilarious at the same time. But it's so you know it's amazing to see how they react to kairos
Hmm.
after the crash.
Yeah, especially because you get through the placebo effect. The animal doesn't know that they're even getting any sort of
Yeah,
treatment. But when they start to move better and feel better, you're like, oh, okay, this is kind of interesting. It's still an anecdote, but it shows you that they're, objectively having some type of benefit. So it makes you ask questions, and it
yeah,
makes you look at your, aging pet, and you're like, oh, maybe I need to find like a chiropractor for my old dog.
yeah. That was super hilarious. But yeah, that just reminded me of that online Cairo
Yep.
for the animals. Well, you are also the founder of Portland Health uh,
So,
Devices, if I'm not wrong.
uh, yeah, so Portland Health Supply,
Supply.
um, yeah, it's a general company that I founded years ago, to basically bring access to certain tools, sort of like you were talking with me once about having different products that are hard for your patients to find that you could sell like in your practice. And that was sort of the idea. I was working with a lot of older patients in a lower income area when I was working for a medical group. They couldn't afford certain products that I knew that they should need, and I knew people that kind of were in that industry that mentored me. And I started with small and built more things, and now my company is selling $20,000 lasers. So I started with small products, and now I'm into big devices as well. And still, the same mission is to bring products to people that might not have afforded them initially. That might have been patients or small products for clinics, but now it's, if I know a class 4 laser or shockwave machine
Yeah.
helps patients, but most docs don't have them because they're so expensive. Wouldn't it be neat if I could sell a product for a little bit less than others are selling it for, and kind of expand that access for patients and doctors? So that's kind of been the mission behind Portland Health Supply, what I've been doing for about 5 years now.
Right. I love that. I love that. It started from just an idea, just to help, and now 20 million worth lasers. Wow.
Yeah,
And it's just
20,000, yeah, dollar lasers, but not 20 million. I know that was a spoken part, but also still a small company, so I'm not selling millions of things yet either. So I probably sold, some products in the tens of thousands, but a lot of the times it's definitely a small business, and it's the relational things like talking. All my customers, I know them and talk to them personally for those repeat clinics and things. So that part's nice. It has a feeling of a small business, maybe some of the aspirations for millions of something someday.
yeah.
But yeah, more affordable products for now.
I told you, you give yourself less credit. It's
I'm
gonna
getting
be.
there. I feel like this has been a good year of starting to get to the next level. So I'll build that sort of confidence.
Yeah, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Is it just physical therapy devices or medical supplies in general?
I've done some medical supplies, but just with the regulation and just my own changing interests. Like now I'm working on hyperbaric chambers. I just find that really fascinating. There's really good research there. So I'm more into that than some of the disposable medical products. I helped bring in some PPE, personal protection equipment, during the pandemic. So that was sort of a side project for a while. And so I'll pivot. But right now I'm most passionate about shockwave and lasers and hyperbaric chambers. So that's kind of the direction I'm focusing on, more for PTs and chiros. And I have a couple like MD or uh, you know
Right.
physiatrist customers, but it's usually physical medicine.
What do you think about VR?
Yeah. So my other passion, the past couple of years, I worked with Kinotech, which is a technology company in PT and chiro space and fitness as well.
What
And they started out
called?
as Kinotech.
Kinotech.
So it's linked in my profile. More or less, it has become a bunch of things for biometrics, but it kind of started out as VR for learning about your body and your biomechanics, and then
Yes.
seeing sort of your avatar representing your movement. So it was VR. Done a bunch of conferences with them about VR, but now that's more uh, either on like a computer desktop for a clinician to record someone's movement. It measures their actual joint movement and great accuracy. And then there's also format for tablets and devices now too. So it's gone from VR to now it's sort of using traditional screens, because VR is hard for people to access. But that vision is definitely sound. The way that people can interact with their bodies really feeds into how the brain changes, which I'm really passionate about. So showing someone their movement in a different way, measuring their movement, having visuals, that's an enormous benefit for people, especially chronic pain, getting them to re-see their body and their strength in a new way. It's really neat to use VR for that.
Definitely. I was observing, I was doing my observership before my internship at this neuro clinic that was practicing VR in physical therapy for their stroke patients.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they had games designed for their patients, and it's it's not even like games. It's like day-to-day activities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we cannot have set up like a grocery store, but they just put on the glasses. They'll choose the program. Okay, uh, the basic thing that you need to learn is go get groceries. So they
Mm-hmm.
set the program for groceries, and this lady with stroke, with the affected arm, she's trying to push the cart.
Mm-hmm.
So she's trying to grab the cart and push the cart with her, with her flexed
Mm-hmm.
wrist and fingers, and then she's trying to push it. And then the game starts. This is where the game starts. Then they're like, "This is your list.
Mm-hmm.
You need eggs." So the eggs will pop up, and then she's turning all around and looking for eggs. And then she's like, "Oh, I found the eggs," and the eggs are towards a reach where she has to move her shoulder. So there's shoulder,
Yeah.
elbow movement. So she's going to go grab the eggs and then bring it back and put it in the cart. And then there is milk. And then the milk is all the way down. So it's like a PNF pattern
Yep.
without her
Yes.
realizing it.
Yep.
And he is getting so confident that, oh wow, I did grocery shopping, even if it's on a game, even if it's imaginary. She was so confident that she started going for shopping, and she dropped the items a number of times because the wrist and fingers is very hard to get. The flexion is very hard because of the spasticity.
Yep.
But other than the dropping of the arm, she was doing everything, and it was so beautiful. I am waiting. I found one place that was hiring over here that practiced VR and physical therapy, but they were not hiring. I gave in my application, everything, and I spoke. I went there. I loved the place. They said, now because the hiring freeze just started and it's bad out there right now.
Really?
So, yeah, so I did not push for it, and I got this good opportunity, and I loved my patients. I love my patients, and it's been going good. But that's one of the things that's been on my mind, and I am dying to work on that.
Yeah. It's really neat, and there's more, especially in like Department of Defense. I went to a conference with Department of Defense. They love VR for training their industrial athletes, they call them, because of how physical their jobs are. They really are like athletes. But met a lot of players in the VR space. One of the reasons why Kinotech kind of pivoted from that direction was just that, like you were saying, not everybody has the hardware, the VR sets.
Yes.
Even if you train the patient in your clinic, there's one VR set and one patient versus having the ability for home care, health, or multiple patients at once in a PT bay. So that's where we kind of got to that device agnostic, where we're not tethered to a physical device. But of course, the market's changing. There's going to be more. Meta's probably listening right now. They're going to advertise the Meta Quest to all the people that are on this group right now. But there's more VR headsets that are becoming more affordable. So I think that will be in more clinics, and there'll be more opportunities for PTs to work programs like that.
We never imagined that tablet would be something that we would use for, our reports and just as a medical device. But we've been using tablets for home health, for all our documentation. So you never know. A few years from now, it's going to change and going to evolve. So I'm excited to see that.
Well, the neat thing with Kinotech is they can use tablets now to analyze your movement, and then they turn that into visuals that gamify it. Wow. So you might not be moving like an object, but you'd be watching your movement, and you'd see your score progress as your like mobility and stability metrics improve. So that way, it's sort of like bringing visual technology and gamification to more people, but it doesn't use the VR just because of the limited access to that hardware. But it turns anyone's like phone or tablet into somewhat of an interactive like PT type of device, which is pretty neat.
I love that. I need to look into it. That's why I'm like, as soon as we finish this session, that's the first thing that I'm doing is I'm stalking that company, and I'm just going to dive deep in and just find out what's going on. And if they have any more research out there, just let me know, and I would love to look into it. I had a friend in Texas. She was doing her PhD in VR for, she's an exercise physiologist. So her PhD research was VR in teenagers for cardiovascular system. I don't remember exactly, but something to do with that. So I asked her for all the research that she's been doing on VR, and she sent it to me. I was up all night just reading through papers, and it was so interesting. But again, it just got lost. Life happens. Just got job. I moved to New York and never got a chance to look into it again.
Yeah. It's a fascinating world out there. That was partly, I wanted to help people in different ways with Kinotech. Initially, I was like, oh, this is an opportunity to take those patients I was working with in my last practice where they might have been, addicted or using opiates for chronic pain for years, and they saw their bodies as broken. But if I could record their movement and show them this like really healthy avatar and show them, hey, you're not broken. You're actually above average with a lot of your scores because you have a functioning body. If I could get that sort of switch to see their body in a different way,
Yeah.
that had a huge psychological
Yes.
impact. So that was sort of the initial interest. And then I was like, oh, this is fascinating how all these businesses and tech companies work. Because there's PTs and chiros that work for VR companies and other tech companies and different specialties bringing in their expertise there. So there's a lot of lateral movement and opportunity. I'll send some resources your way if you're ever curious. At the
Yeah.
very least, for me, it was just fun to learn about that stuff. I ultimately got too tied down in my own business to go full time into like the software space in healthcare. But there's opportunities there that I think your listeners would be interested in too.
I love that. Yeah, definitely. I'll take a look into that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so exciting to see the world, the changing world, and that's why, like we were talking, I love being in this field because you can see it grow, and it's not just stuck. It's There's a growth, there's a learning phase every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are so many new technologies and terms coming up that's been fascinating me every single day. Plus, speaking with so many people out there is really inspiring me to look into it. Like movement therapy, there was no such thing as movement therapy. Now it's a term,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a whole thing about movement therapy after injury, and I love that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a changing world, but it's exciting because not only are there different opportunities, things to learn for us to get better, but there's just a wide space of innovation that can make us really measure things. So we can measure things we hadn't measured before, and if you're not measuring things, you're guessing, right? So I like that technology is integrating into more of what we used to eyeball or like use a goniometer
Yeah.
or all these things that maybe were less precise. People felt like their local practice and their results were enough for them to not change their methods, but
Mm-hmm.
it's because they didn't have access or comparison to their results. But if you have, like a central database and you can see in real time your outcomes versus other clinics' outcomes, it might drive you to change or do certain continuing ed. But I think that transparency is coming. Whether or not people upload that information or we all have access to it remains to be seen. But I think that there'll be platforms for us to share and learn from each other with our data
Yeah.
and our biometric data for physical medicine that hasn't, people have their Whoops and their Apple Watches for how many steps they had or what their blood pressure was. But it'll be neat to see someone improve in certain, daily activities and metrics like that. And, what courses or treatments are they doing that improve their ADLs? And can we see hard data on that someday? Yeah, I think that's coming sooner than later.
Yeah. Me and my friends are whenever we're going and we're in a rush, we're late, we're running. All of a sudden, our Apple Watches is like, stop, breathe,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's that's
Yeah.
creepy,
Yeah.
but that's technology.
Oh, totally. I need to wear mine again because there'll be times like that too where it's like, you're not breathing, right? And I'd be like, oh, I guess I'm stressed out and reading something. I should probably give oxygen to my brain, but I held my breath and didn't even notice.
Yeah,
So that sort of biofeedback, I think, is going to be good for everybody.
I love that. Yeah. Any piece of advice for people who are looking to get start their business or just try something that you're already experienced with?
Yeah, I think what I'd recommend to, whether you're like a prospective student or you're new in practice or a current student, or maybe you've been in practice for 20 years, it's always important to have like a mentor or the ability to visualize what you want your business or your future career or your next step to be, and to connect with those people, reach out sort of like you did and you do to so many people. You just reach out online and say, hey, I'm interested in what you're doing, I'd like to talk, and maybe that turns into a bigger connection or a mentorship. But I think the best thing you can do is find the people that are doing the things that you want to do, talk to them, learn from them, see what they're doing, how they did it. uh, People are sharing so much on social media. You can get a lot of that stuff for free that's recorded there already.
Yeah.
But I think don't be afraid to identify what you want, identify the people that have that, and reach out to them to kind of learn from their experience so you can get yourself there with what they've already proven works.
Definitely. Yeah, I love that. Any last piece of advice for our viewers today?
No, I think actually, yeah, I'll take that back. So one thing, and I think you've illustrated it well, is just active listening. No matter what career you're in, but especially if you're dealing with patients, learning how to talk and listen to someone to kind of keep a conversation going and make them feel heard, and then also just learn what little secrets lie in like their patient history. It's so important. It's a hard skill to learn. You're so focused on like the tests you're doing or the notes you're taking, but listening to them and kind of following certain threads of the conversation so you get to the real person and what their values are, so you can kind of work towards those values and motivate them to, whether it's being compliant with like your work or industry goals or just compliant with really clinically related things like home care or dietary suggestions. If you're not doing active listening, connecting with the person and understanding their values, you're going to miss out so much by just being focused on what you're going to say next. So I think you're a great example of a skill that everyone could learn from, and just listening and learning how to engage with people and taking that in.
Thank you. That really means a lot. But I love talking. So
Right. Both are nice, but making sure that you listen and are curious to learn from people, I think that's a
yeah.
huge value in life, and you show that you're interested in learning from people.
That goes on. Like talking, listening, it's the same thing. But
Yeah.
to keep the conversation, yeah, I love talking.
Yeah.
There were complaints about me when growing up. Like, oh my gosh, she's so talkative. She's always talking in class, doesn't pay attention. So my parents are like, what do you even talk about? Why do you have to talk so much? And the same talking has got us here.
Yeah.
And we're talking about health. So let's talk about health.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing, is paying attention to yourself and learning, what are you telling yourself? What's your internal dialogue telling you? Well, you're hearing it as a kid, you talk too much. Well, actually, maybe that's your secret power. And hey, it turns out it is. You're really good at talking, and now you're talking sort of professionally. You're using that skill, going into your instincts, learning what you're good at, but just being observant and not being afraid to lean into your natural tendencies, which for you ended up being a strength.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I also think that the universe tries to talk to you. I don't know, maybe it's in my
for
mind.
sure.
But
for sure. I agree.
But yeah, the universe is always trying to, talk to you and push you towards a few things. And, so you have to be very, like you said, you have to listen. You have to have your eyes open and just observe, try to listen what's going on, and well, what's my next step, because that's how I ended up here today where I am, is just by observing, by listening, and by picking up those things that the universe wanted me to pick and push. So
yeah, I think that's a great message for people. It's so true.
They're gonna think I'm crazy.
Yeah, they'll know it. I think it speaks for itself, so it's great advice.
Thank you. Well, where can all of our audience find you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on Instagram. So if they follow, my profile link, that Dr. Andrew Bruns at Instagram, that's a great one. And then my website, Portland Health Supply, is where you can find all my products that I sell and some of my blog posts and things. So those are the two best spots.
Perfect. Thank you so much for tonight. It was a lovely conversation. It was so much fun.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It was not the same as yesterday. It was so much more fun. So you have to give yourself a little credit.
Yeah, it was fun to kind of be spontaneous. We went in a different direction. Yeah. I had fun with it too. So I look forward to connecting in the future. I'm sure you won't be a stranger. So it was nice talking with you, and I hope people enjoyed listening in.
Definitely. I'm gonna blow up your messages. Right. Sending me so many texts like, tell me more about VR, tell me more about this device, tell me more. So
yeah, I love it. We'll geek out offline.
Oh, definitely.
All right. Thanks again.
Good night. Have a lovely night. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to our talk about health. You can follow me on Instagram at bhavna.devnani, on Facebook at bhavna devnani, and we'll leave all the information in the description below. Thank you.